What's up, guys? Welcome to part 2 of the C10 build series. I got a lot of good feedback from you guys for the first video. If you haven't checked out the first video, make sure you click the link and go over and watch it first. It'll give you a much better understanding of what's going on in this video. So as you guys saw in the first video, we went and checked out that C10 and threw it on a tow truck and brought it home. At the end of that video, I put the rear axle under the truck, and so now we've got to get into putting the front suspension under it. While I have your guys' attention, if you could go down and hit that subscribe button for me, every little bit counts, and I really appreciate all the feedback. Got any questions, make sure you leave them down in the comments below, and let's get started on this. So the first thing that goes into that is that front suspension on that truck is it weighs a ton. So that front suspension, 4 of us had a hard time even getting it into the bed of the truck, and there was no way I was getting that front suspension out of the truck by myself. So I actually decided to disassemble it in the bed of the truck and then piece by piece put it underneath the front of the truck. So most importantly, also, even if I used a cherry picker to get it out of the bed of the truck, it would just be too difficult to use all that weight and try to get it in the right position underneath the frame. And that's not really something you want to screw up, because not every alignment's going to fix, a messed up frame. If it's bent or if we bolted in there incorrectly and it's tweaked, you'll spend forever trying to fix that problem and you'll probably never get it fixed. So I knew it'd be easier just only having that cross member, and then the suspension can get thrown on at a later time. So I took these pictures, I'll insert them here. So these are little shims that go between the cross member and the upper control arms. And so as you can see, there's kind of spray paint on a lot of them. One was pink, yellow, blue, and I think either gray or black. So I spray painted them just so that I knew color coded which side went where, and then took pictures so I knew what shims went where also, because I wanted to kind of have it in the perfect spot when I put it back in. Of course, the truck will have to be aligned again, but that'll give me a good ballpark of where to start. So after I took all the pictures and had them all color coded, I ended up taking the whole front suspension apart, and me and my buddy started cutting out the cross member that was left from the 4-wheel drive. So once we got that piece cut out, we got the front cross member from the 2-wheel drive, and as you can see here, we used a jack and just pushed it up into place. So we went over to my friend's C10 and we kind of measured from where the cross member starts to certain spots on the frame and stuff like that. So we knew we got it in almost the perfect spot. There is one bolt hole that does line up already, and then we just have to drill the rest of the holes. So we marked all the holes and drilled them all out. But once we got all that right, we spent forever trying to get that front suspension back under the truck. Once we had the cross member in place and it was all bolted in, that was just fine. But for some reason, we were fighting the springs to get them back underneath the A-arms. It was taking us forever because there's no weight in the front of the truck, no engine, no transmission. The front core support and the fenders and all that, with all that weight gone, the truck really didn't weigh anything. So we couldn't get the control arms with the spring inside to kind of compress up and bolt it all back together, because the jack would just lift the entire truck instead of lifting the knuckle into place. So we kind of had to do multiple different things. We ended up using a ratchet strap because the strap was holding the frame to the jack, so that way it couldn't just lift the frame up. That took us a while to get done, and once we had that done, I went on to OfferUp, and just the guy down the street, he was selling these rims and tires. I think I only paid $80 for them, so we went and picked those up, got some lug nuts at AutoZone, kind of threw that together, and the truck was finally a roller. So within about a week, I had the truck completely roller. All the suspension was bolted in, the gearbox bolted in place, steering rod, all that stuff. So the truck was completely controllable at this point. Now this is where things kind of got a little hectic in the thought process. This whole kind of build was just something to do because I was kind of bored. It never really had a sense of a direction. It kind of could have been anything. It could have been a drift truck, could have been a pre-runner, could have been a ton of things that I was kind of all over the place with. Maybe a 12-valve Cummins, an LS swap would be easy. Maybe something crazy like an engine out of a CTSV with a supercharger on it, manual transmission, that'd be pretty cool. Kind of like a street truck. So I was kind of all over the place what I wanted to do. I kind of wanted to do one of the aftermarket frame kits where you either buy a complete kit that you bolt to the factory frame, or you can just buy a whole new frame, but it's like $10,000 and you get a custom frame. And pretty much all you have is a frame. You don't even, some kits don't even include airbags, a tank, compressors, and all the other stuff that goes into it. So at that point, it'd be $10,000 for a truck that's old and junky sitting on a nice frame that doesn't include wheels or an engine, transmission, stuff like that. So I kind of knew that was out of the budget, of course. So I kind of started looking in other directions. Do I just notch it myself? I can throw a 4-link in it. I could do a kit myself for a couple $100, or I could get a really nice aftermarket kit for a couple $1,000s. I just kind of didn't know where to go. So with that being said, I knew at some point I was going to take the cab and stuff off to clean up the frame and stuff. So at this point in my mind, I was like, all right, well, while I'm already here, I'll just kind of take the cab and everything off the truck and kind of look at the condition of all of it. That way I can paint the frame while it's already there, or I can just get started on cutting the frame and kind of starting the notch kits and stuff like that. So either way, the cab had to come off at some point or another. So I kind of got to the point that I might as well just take it off now as I'm trying to decide what I want to do. So here you can see the truck is in the yard, and I'm taking the cab off using a cherry picker. And so all you do is you take a piece of wood, put it on top of the cherry picker, and just lift it all the way up. Because it's in the yard, I couldn't really roll the cherry picker. So I was having a problem because I couldn't roll it back to get it out of the ways from the wheels of the C10. So I couldn't just roll the frame out of the way, and I couldn't roll anything because it was kind of all stuck together. So it was a really bad problem. And then also from lifting the cab, as the cherry picker kind of moved, it was lifting the cab up and bringing it in. And that was kind of causing issues because it was starting to hit stuff. So that was another problem I was starting to have. And so I kind of put down a bunch of plywood everywhere and kind of got it to roll. So once I got the cab off and I got the bed off the frame, I had the frame by itself, and I knew I was going to do some work to it, but I kind of wanted to clean it up a little bit just in case I ended up with a frame swap. That way I could sell the frame, make it look better. Who knows? So just took some rattle can spray paint, sprayed it all black, made it look decent, kind of got rid of it, and that way when it's sitting out in the weather, it won't get any rustier than it already is. Not that it was rusted in any bad way, it's just surface rust. They didn't ever really do a good job at coating the frames back in the 70s and 80s. It wasn't until recently that they started taking care of frames. And even now, most companies kind of don't really do that well with the frames. I think Ford power coats their frames, but still Chevy only leaves it's kind of like an oily residue on all their frames. And once you kind of nick that away, then it'll rust, some surface rust will get to it. So just wanted to clean it up a little bit. And this is where things got really, really serious. So I knew I wanted to do a frame swap, didn't know where I wanted to go with it, was kind of going for a cheap alternative. And I'm scrolling through OfferUp one day and a frame shows up. So I kind of look at it and I'm, trying to find out what the frame's from. And it is a 2001 Tahoe. It's a complete roller, had everything underneath it, all the suspension. The guy pretty much just took the cab off of it, steering wheel and all that was still there. Just took the whole Tahoe, because it's all one portion, just took it off. And he was going to use the frame, he was going to cut it up and make it into something else. So I'm kind of doing some research. The guy was selling it for really cheap. He really wasn't asking much for it. So did some research, and it's about the same width from hub to hub. It is 1 inch shorter in length from wheel to wheel. And I kind of figured, considering I'll put the cab where I want the cab, I can split it up in half, and that'll only be half an inch on each wheel. 1 inch split up by 2. That's only a half an inch difference if I put the cab perfectly in the middle of that, in that difference. So kind of looked at it some more, kind of, talked to the guy, had some questions for him. And he ended up saying, hey, I need this off my trailer. I'm going to go pick up something else. So if you want it for really cheap, pretty much, I'll come even drop it off for you. So I was like, all right, whatever, let's do it. I'm kind of at the point where it's like, if I fail, didn't really waste too much money at it. But if it's successful, then great. I think I can make it work. There's nothing that some cutting and welding can't fix. I pulled the trigger on it, and he came and dropped it off the next morning. So since it was still on his trailer, I just had him back into my driveway and we just kind of rolled it into the garage so that way we didn't have to deal with it. And the next problem was, well, crap, how do I get the cab and stuff into the garage to get all this work going? Because I really didn't want to do it in the backyard just because there's no way to get the cab on and off the frame for all the work I had to do. So it was definitely something I had to do in the garage. So after that point, I realized I could put the cab onto a trailer and kind of roll it around and bring it into the garage. So that's actually what I ended up doing. So here's some footage of that. And then at that point, I just dragged in the cherry picker. So now that I had the cab and the frame in the garage, I was able to start my measurements and kind of go from there. So first, I kind of really started from measuring Zerk fittings to certain places. The reason why I measure from the Zerk fitting is because it is the center of the wheel. So the top Zerk fitting on the control arm is dead center of the axle. So it's a good place to measure, just so you guys know. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of questions about this, so I'm going to try and answer them all in this video. Is the reason why I thought it was a good idea to do a Tahoe frame, just because the size and stuff like that, is there's a ton of good things that come with it. Not knowing if it's going to work is a big problem, yes, but the brakes that come on the Tahoes, they have massive calipers, all four-wheel discs. A Wilwood kit would cost way more than this whole entire swap would pretty much cost. And then you add in things like a Tahoe frame is built for an LS, so it's already got mounts, already got everything on it. So pretty much if I had a brand new Tahoe or a good condition Tahoe, I could take the cab off, put the C10 on it, and it would pretty much drive right away. But because I bought it as a frame, you know, I don't have an engine, don't have other stuff that I'm going to need for the swap. It's just considerably, there's a lot of things that go into it. Strength-wise, Tahoes are not like the Silverados in the rear suspension. They actually have a 4-link setup from factory. They use springs and a 4-link with a panhard bar versus leaf springs where you get problems like axle wrap and a bunch of things like that. So there was definitely a good amount of reasons that I found out why it's worth going. So if you guys have any other questions besides what I've answered, feel free to leave me a comment below and I'll make sure I answer any questions. However, if you guys haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. It helps me out a ton. And thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.